Hello there. In my eternal quest of trying to watch every single anime in the top of the rankings, I stumbled upon one that was extremely unique and very different to every other. It is a very unique show in the fact that out of all of the animes in the top of my anime list and anime list, this is the only one that I have never heard of with the exception of the donghwas. And with the donghwas is like you kind of understand it because for the most part anime fans don't usually talk about them unless it's some extremely great animes like Shigwan Daily Ren or To Be Hero X. But with this one it was different. Not only this was a show that was not a donghua, but I genuinely have never heard of it. Even other donghwas, I have heard way more things about them than about this one in particular, and that makes it so weird. But I have to talk about it because I watched it, and the name is Shoujo Kageki Revue Starlight. As I said, this was a show that I didn't have in my radar at all. It was completely different to most other anime that you would expect. This was a regular seasonal anime that all of a sudden had a movie that was ranked extremely high, and I didn't knew a single thing about it. So I decided to watch it. Now basically every show that I decided to give it a review in this channel had either one of two things. Either was a well-known and well-established show or was a seasonal anime that was from very recently. This one doesn't fall into any of those categories. As I already stated, this is a seasonal anime, but from the 2018 or 2019 year. It was a very long time ago. And the interesting part is that it's not one of the poster boys of that era. If you think about seasonal animes of the late 2010s, you can come up with like 25 different names before getting Starlight, and that is very impressive. And I, at the start of all of this, kinda understood why. Because there's a couple of things for this show that made me feel very weird. Before moving forward, I just want to quickly ask you to please leave a like and subscribe. It will help the channel to grow, and it would make me very grateful to know that you are supporting this type of content. Now, let's keep moving. Revue Starlight started in a way that was very generic, all things considered. It was just stereotypical girl going into high school and then something happening that was kind of fantastic. In this case, she was going for a high school of performative arts, basically dancing, singing, and mainly acting. And she was part of one of those classes. Now the thing is that something unique happens in which one of her old-time friends come back after being absent from Japan for like a decade, and the name of the girl was Kaguya. Keep that name in mind for later on. After that happens, we just see that this high school seems to be like what you would expect for a performative arts high school to be. Just having classes that are very unique to what they are doing. However, all of that changes when the protagonist discovers that her friend, which is Kagura, all of a sudden disappear overnight. So she starts looking for her, and all of a sudden she stumbles upon a very weird event. And there is where the weird things start happening. In summary, this event, which is for some reason directed by a giraffe, is an event in which multiple of her classmates are battling each other for being something that we later discovered to be that they would be the Starlights, the brightest star in all of the academy. Now the way in which they battle is simply in a roughly real combining with performing. They are acting, but they are also technically fighting actually. It is a weird thing, not exactly explainable in easy terms, but hear me out. It's basically they singing and dancing and then battling in the middle of what is supposed to be acting. Are they truly acting? Are they truly fighting? Is an in-betweener. But yeah, basically, Karen goes and for some reason gets into one of the battles, and she basically all of a sudden becomes part of this Starlight or this review, and now she's another participant that has to battle every single time. Now, after that happens, basically this whole story goes into a weird path of being too normal. Now, every single chapter usually focuses in specifically one girl. Every single one of her classmates gets one full chapter to develop. Some of them get a chapter and a half, but for the most part it's one chapter. We go in that trend for basically half the season. We get one girl being the focus, then we get another and another, and it feels kinda bland and kinda boring, and it makes it feel kinda awkward. Everything in this show felt wrong in one way or another. The characters felt weird, the story felt weird, even the animation at times felt weird. The voice acting was shocking as to how weird it felt for me. At some point I even debated myself deciding if it was truly a terrible voice acting or not. And there was something that made me change my mind. Because, as is gonna be said in the title, this anime is completely destroying your mind. Something that was very unique was that this whole show has an eerie feeling of something being wrong. As I'm saying, the characters felt weird, even though you cannot point at something specific that makes you feel like they are weird. The animation felt awkward even if it was normal. The soundtrack, the music fell off even if it was completely normal and there was nothing wrong with them. Something was not quite clicking. And that was something I was truly feeling for the first half of the season. It wasn't just that, oh, this is bad and I do not like it. It was a, why is this like this? I feel like it should be something else, but it's not. Why? And then we reach the chapter 6. In the 6th chapter of this show is when we start watching at the character that is basically the most important in this whole show, which is Daiba. Now, Nana-chan was, in hindsight, the most obvious reason as to why this whole show felt so weird, and I will explain it. This character was supposed to be a joke of a character for the entirety of the first half, and it was very obvious that she was supposed to be that. Her design and her hairstyle looking like she had some bananas put on her hair. Things like she having a whole gag of constantly being a cook and cooking only things with bananas, and her name by itself, she being called Dai Banana. It was very obvious that she was a joke, but there was always something wrong with her. She was, by far, the character that I felt that has the worst voice acting in the first half. Every other girl had something going on which made it seem like it was an average voice acting, but Daiba felt completely out of place. Even if the show didn't have fantastic voice acting, she was completely out of it, and I couldn't understand why. Until we reach the chapter 6 that I'm mentioning. In the chapter 6, we start watching her and the whole thing that she is doing. Now, Nana-chan was very different to the other girls. She wasn't fully participating in the acting as a whole. She was focusing more and more in the scripts and the whole art of creating the scenery rather than she being an active participant. And that was her whole thing, the only thing that made her be something relevant. So it felt kinda weird when we actually see her battling, because as I said, every character had a chapter, You could have assumed that she was gonna participate at some point, but the fact that she was not doing anything made you feel odd when you saw her, and when we see her battling, we expect something very bad, like a crushing defeat, or maybe she not being fully focused, maybe she was just there by chance or because they needed enough people, and all of a sudden she wins her battle. And the whole review. What? Yeah, after all of what I just said, she wins the whole review. All of this participation, all of this weird event in which all of the girls are participating, she won. Straight up. And we just watched her win. It was completely out of nowhere. In the half of the season, we see a character win the whole thing. What are we gonna do with the remaining 6 episodes? And then the giraffe goes and tells something, which is something very important, something more like a reminder. That is that she can ask for anything to be done. And there is where the first mind crush comes. And it's when Daiba asks the giraffe to rewind the time to make her whole year all over again. The second half of this chapter, after she asks for that, is she reliving everything of what has happened in her whole story. Not only the things that we have seen in the anime, but things like how they met each other in the first time that they were in that academy. It was completely weird, and she, the joke of a character, was the one that was moving the strings behind the scenes. We see her win for the first time and then doing the whole thing once again. We see her living certain events that we have already seen either earlier in the episode or the previous episode, yet she is doing it once again. And then she does it again and again and again. She starts constantly rewinding time to constantly live once again with the girls, because she was scared that they were not gonna be able to succeed, and she would have rather keep them in that state of being promising stars, even if they were never gonna achieve their dreams. We do not know exactly how many times she rewinds time. We see it like 4 or 5 different times. Yet, we know that she has been constantly rewinding it. We do not know how long. Might have been a dozen times. Might have been hundreds. It's not because there's something that she wants to remake. It's not that she is scared or she's sad that she couldn't accomplish something. It was that she wanted to keep the things the way that they were going. And her whole plan succeeded for so long. She constantly kept doing that until something weird happened in the rewinds and an unexpected guest appeared on screen. Remember? Yeah, Kagura was not meant to be there, yet she was there. And she was the one that broke the cycle. In reality, Kagura was not directly the one that did it, but rather the vessel of the reason as to why Nana-chan ended up being defeated. And the whole thing is that actually Karen was never meant to be in this review. She was never meant to be, as you could have guessed from the first episode, yet the implications were much bigger than you could have anticipated. Not only she wasn't meant to be there, but Kagura wasn't meant to be there either. And Kagura was the reason as to why she kept moving forward, and how she ends up defeating Daiba Nana. And the interesting part of all of this is that you can actually feel that that eerie feeling was completely intended. After this chapter, you do not have the same eerie feeling. The voice acting of Daiba changes. I don't know if it's something that it was changed for the pitches or something, but you can truly feel that it was different. And after this happens is when the story starts going into a more logical direction, Either we see more of the other girls or we see how the story progresses in a much more natural way. And even though Daiba's influence was certainly huge and important, you can kinda stop thinking about her for the remainder of the series. Remember, we still have a movie. Now, in what is the second half of the season, we start getting closer and closer to the final chapters and the ending of the story. And we see a whole bunch of different important things happening. I am gonna brush it off because I don't think that those are that important. There are certain really big plot twists there that are also a small part as to why this show feels so odd to watch, but for the most part is not that insane. With the lone exception of Kagura betraying Karen. We do not know why she does that the second that it happens, and we just can wait and see in the later episodes. But when that happened, after they were able to finally succeed in what was their dream of being there together, all of a sudden things become much weirder and go back to what it felt with this ominous side of things to come. And then we get to the last episode. Every single episode had a battle that was setting that whole tone, and for the last episode was very obvious to anticipate that it was gonna be Kagura versus Karen. It was meant to be, and you were bound to see it, and indeed happened. Both of them, after certain events happened that made it feel like something extremely weird was happening, because this whole show has been extremely weird up until this point, and of course it was, and they finally battled each other. They start constantly attacking and defending themselves and going back and forth. You know, the typical battle. Up until this point, it doesn't feel anything particularly weirder than the other battles in the show so far. Yet, there's something that the giraffe says in this point in time that is kinda out of nowhere, but when you think about it, it clicks. The giraffe was the whole master of this weird review or this Starlight for the whole story. We do not know anything about it, we just know that it's a talking giraffe, which you know, very normal. The giraffe has shown to be constantly excited to watch the acting because they were basically pushing the limits of the whole craft. You know, it was kinda like a fan, kinda like a spectator, someone extremely happy to see someone pushing the boundaries of what it was possible for the hobby that he liked. And then he talks to us and he tells us what is actually happening. The reason as to why every single girl was battling so hard and why they were suffering, why the suffering of Kagura was happening on screen, why Karen had to suffer to bring her back, and all of that was for one reason, and it was because the spectators wanted to see it. And the spectators are the audience, and the audience is you. The audience are the villains is not something completely unprecedented. It's something that has happened in several other shows over the years. But the way in which they bring it out of nowhere make it feel completely shocking. Because the second that you remember what you are looking at, everything connects. You are not watching just a regular anime. You're watching an anime about actors and actresses. You're watching an anime in which the whole point is that they are acting. Whether their suffering is real or not, you do not care. You are the audience. If the actress has behind something really crushing, if she has a tough life, if she is suffering from unconceivable things, you do not care at all. You are just there to clap when she does something amazing, to cry when she does something heartbreaking. if the person behind is suffering, it's meaningless. You just care about what you're seeing on scene. And that is what we're doing as an audience as well, and what the giraffe is doing. The giraffe is not just a character that is there to explain certain things. The giraffe is the representation of the audience, of us, the ones that are watching this review, this Starlight. We have seen all of these weird things happening with Daiba, how Kagura becomes so distant with Karen, how Karen has suffered from such a distance of Kagura, and all of the last couple episodes in which we see Kagura suffering for half a year. We have not done anything to stop it. We can just turn off the chapter. We can just go away, watch something else, and stop the suffering of the characters. Yet, we do not do it because we, the audiences, want to see that happening. The audience is inherently cruel, not because they are actively doing the harm, but because they are not doing anything to prevent it, nor to stop it. Even if the whole suffering can be stopped with something as simple as walking away, we do not do it, and we keep watching until the end. The first season finished with that abrupt message, alongside the fact that Karen manages to save Kagura in what we assume to be a happy ending. Yet, there's the movie yet to see. The Revue Starlight movie is an expansion in all of the characters that we have seen. As I already established, because most of the characters only had a single episode to shine, they felt like there were some missed potential there, and they showed you everything here. The movie is a fantastic visual experience. It's like taking a chapter of Monogatari series and making it in a whole movie with the budget of a whole movie. It's phenomenal to watch, and I think that is fantastic that the creators, Kinema Citrus, managed to do something like this. They actually had that feeling of watching a screenplay despite the fact that you were watching an anime. The movie scenarios, the abrupt stops in certain speeches and certain characters interacting with each other, all of them felt like you were watching a combination of a show, a movie, a real life movie, an anime, a screenplay, and everything you can imagine. And it felt really good. But in this movie is when it happens the final what is going on. And it's, once again, with Miss Daiba Nana-chan. At some point in the movie, Daiba does something completely unexpected. All of them in this movie are watching and deciding what are they gonna do with their lives once they graduate. Most of them have their goals clear, others are not certain, but for the most part we know what they want to do. But Daiba remembered what she wanted. She didn't like the idea of them suffering from failure, and she wanted to stop it. In a turnaround of the events, we see her fighting against them. All against Daiba, and she starts fighting them, and they go one by one to try to be fair, kinda like in a screenplay and all of that. And why is she dead? Yeah, the movie manages to subvert your expectations in every possible regard, from the reason as to why certain aspects of a story are being put there, why the things look like they look, how the characters are talking in specific ways. Everything feels like it might be a facade, yet that is the whole purpose. Because at the end of the day, this is a review. This is not a regular anime. This is an acting. This is a screenplay. This is an act. This is Starlight. Half of the movie goes and talks about all of the conflicts that were kinda unsolved in the regular season, and they do it in fantastic ways. They do it with different sceneries, with moving objects all over the place, all of them fighting the same way that they were fighting earlier on in the story. Yet, everything feels new, everything feels different, yet everything feels the same. You do not know exactly what is going on. You do not know what is happening and what is not happening. Are these battles just representations? Are these battles actually happening in this crazy review war? Or are they just acting? Are all of these screenplays or are just representations of the reality in which none of this happened, but rather they were just regular conversations? We do not know. We do not know if that is the case or if it's not the case. We do not know what is happening. We do not know what is not happening. Everything can be real and nothing can be real at the same time. And that is the final thing that broke my mind in this show. Not that anything was real, not that everything was fake, but the fact that everything was real and fake at the same time. Because that is what acting is all about. It's not about reality, it's not about faking something, it's just deceiving the audiences as much as you can for as long as you can. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you want more content like this, talking about unexpected shows from really old seasons, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It not only helps the channel to grow, but it helps you to make me realize that you like weird stuff. So, without anything else to explain, once again, I hope that you enjoyed it, and see you next time. Bye bye.